the 75, 6, 7, and 8 seasons, when you put them together and you start to look at what's about to happen, you realize that the pattern that we've had at Penn State, it's not the idea that we want to play well, but that everything we do is geared towards eventually winning a national championship football team, and that every kid we recruit at Penn State, we talk about being on a national championship football team. The 75 team was a bunch of kids, as you'll see, that played with their hearts and did not have great ability, but won a lot of football games just on the determination and discipline and commitment, and ended up going to a Sugar Bowl game and had a very respectable performance there. And then from that, you'll see a bunch of young players like Facina, a young quarterback, develop to become a really good football player and a great team. Fitzke and Petruccio, Bruce Clark, Millen, and those kids come in to where in 77 and 78 they were as good football teams as anybody had in the country, and as good as any football teams we had at Penn State.
For almost 100 years, Penn State has been a symbol of excellence in college football. Typical of that tradition has been the last 10 years. Hello, I'm Jimmy Cefalo. Welcome to the first of our 3-volume series, Great Moments in Penn State Football. During the next several moments, we, along with head coach Joe Paterno, are going to relive the years 1975 through 1978. During that time, Penn State went to 4 major bowl games, had a combined 38-10-0 record, 3 times were ranked in the top 10 by the major polls, 12 All-Americans, and 24 players drafted by the NFL. The accomplishments go on and on, so let's go to it. Coach?
The 1975 season turned out to be one of the greatest seasons that I've ever been involved in. Even though we didn't win all our games and we were not a great football team, we never had a team that played as close to its potential as that 75 team did. I don't think we ever had as many guys who were completely committed to be as good as they could be. But they were smart, they were tough, they were disciplined, and so we ended up with a good football team, went to Sugar Bowl. Again, one of those games with Temple, when Harden was there, that we always had a lot of tough times with him.
And that sentiment was never more typified than in the 1975 season opener. In the first quarter, Temple running back Bob Harris raced 76 yards to stake Temple to an early lead. Both teams swapped field goals. Then Rich Motti went the length of the field on this 100-yard kickoff return.
Italy took off a good kick. Coming down to Fitzke, he's a very fast man. He's breaking up the middle, and he has one man to beat. And he beat him. Fitzke going all the way. Check that. That was Rich Motti. That was Rich Motti. Number 48, not number 46. Rich Motti goes 100 yards for the touchdown. That brings Penn State to within 1 point, 10-9. We're going to look at it.
But it was senior kicker Chris Barr who rocketed Penn State into the lead with his school record 55-yard field goal.
And Chris Barr gets a lot of foot into it, and it's good. A magnificent effort by Chris Barr, 55 yards.
The lead went back and forth. Then with 3:30 left to go in the game and Temple leading 23-18, Coach Paterno remembers.
We had to do a lot of things to win it. We had to have a 100-yard kickoff return. We had to have a 55-yard field goal. and we had to return a punt. Woody Petzel returned a punt 60-something yards with about 3 minutes to go in the game to put us down about the 6-yard line in order for us to go ahead.
Temple 23-18, Penn State with 3 minutes, 50 seconds to play. First and goal from the 3, touchdown Penn State.
And that's how quick it happened.
Wayne Taylor spurting over from the 3, a quick opener right up the middle, standing into the end zone, and Penn State is out in front, 24-23.
And then finally, we had to take a safety. We gave up the 2 points so that we could kick that ball out of there to hang on and win. It was really a great football game, and there were a lot of big plays in it, and it was a shame Temple had to lose it.
Next, the Lions met the Cardinal of Stanford as Tom Donovan became the first freshman in PSU history to rush for over 100 yards.
This is Donovan. The freshman may go. How do you like that for a freshman?
The final, Lions 34, Stanford 14. But the offense that had scored 50 points in the first 2 games could manage only 3 crisp-bar field goals against the Buckeyes of Ohio State. While the offense sputtered, OSU running backs Pete Johnson and 2-time Heisman Trophy winner Archie Griffin combined for 240 yards.
The thing I remember about it was that we had a chance to win the football game, and there were about 8 or 9 minutes to go, and we gave the ball to Ohio State. And Ohio State started on a drive, and I think there were 6 third-down plays they had to make. And there were 2 plays in particular that stand out in my mind. They had a 3rd down and long, and one of our defensive backs made a very silly, careless pass interference play. It was pass interference, all right, but it wasn't necessary. The ball was thrown too far. Kid didn't have a chance to make the play, and that would have stopped the drive, and they would have had to punt the ball. And then Archie Griffin made one of the greatest catches I've ever seen, coming out of the backfield with a 3rd down and about 6 or 7 to go, and made a one-hand diving catch that gave him a 1st down.
The Buckeyes went in for the score on the time-consuming drive and handed the Nits their first defeat of the 1975 campaign.
We really played a tough game, played as well as we could possibly play, and Ohio State did a magnificent job on that last drive.
Penn State got back to their winning ways the following week against Iowa, as Penn State junior quarterback John Andrus had perhaps his finest day, hitting Rich Monty for a 70-yard touchdown.
3rd and 6. He's going for Monty. Touchdown if he can outrun the defender. He outruns Roger Stack, and Penn State comes up with another big play.
John was a guy that was not great, but he worked at it, and it was good to see him have such a good day.
Andrus finished the game with 8 completions and 14 attempts for 195 yards and a TD. Conversely, the Hawkeye quarterbacks did not complete a pass, and the Lions posted a 30-10 victory. Again, the Lions played stellar defense, frustrating the Wildcats of Kentucky. Penn State scored all the points they'd need in the second quarter, and the homecoming crowd was treated to a 10-3 Lion victory.
We beat a good Kentucky team, and we played a great defensive game to do it. We held them to just a field goal, and Greg Buttle had one of his best football games for us. I think he had 14 tackles, and John Quinn played a super game. Now, John was a 220, 25-pound defensive tackle playing against one of the best offensive lines in the country. But John was a smart football player, alert football player, and played every down all out. And I think he had a dozen tackles or so. So it was a great defensive football game, particularly for 2 players.
The Mountaineers of West Virginia brought their unbeaten record to University Park and were shocked by the Nittany Lions. The Lion offense, which was held to 10 points the previous week, dominated the game with 96 plays, 435 yards in total offense, and held the ball for nearly 41 minutes while scoring 39 points. The defense, not to be outdone, shut out the Mountaineers and continued their string to 8 quarters without allowing a TD. Chris Barr was perfect on the day, hitting 4 extra points and connecting on 3 field goals, including a 52-yarder. The Lions Lions took their 3-game win streak into Archibald Stadium to take on the Orange Men of Syracuse, and Chris Barr again had an outstanding game.
We beat Syracuse 19-7, and the thing that stands out in that game is the fact that Chris Barr kicked 3 field goals and a 55-yarder, which was his third 55-yarder of the year.
Barbanchak will hold. 7:25 left first quarter and no score. It has the distance, and it is good. And Chris Barr does it again. 55 yards, and Penn State is on the board.
And with the game very much in doubt, Coach Paterno reached into his seldom-used bag of tricks.
And then the fact that Dick Barbanchak we faked the field goal, and Dick rolled out and threw a pass for a touchdown at 30 yards. So once in a while we get cute.
Barbanchak the holder. No, it's a fake. Barbanchak. Touchdown to Dave Stutz.
The Orange Men came right back and scored a second-half TD against a Penn State defense that had not allowed a touchdown in 10 quarters and cut the Lions' lead 12-7. It took a fourth-quarter John Andrews to Dave Stutz' TD pass to put the game out of reach. Once again, the Penn State defense performed admirably, and the Lions routed the Cadets from Army 31-0. The Nittany Lion defense only allowed 10 points total in their last 4 games. Against the Terrapins of Maryland at College Park, Penn State jumped out to an early 12-0 lead.
Woody Petrel, first down. He may go all the way. Woody Petrel goes 36 yards behind Benson and Rafferty.
Maryland came back to take charge at 13-12, but the Lions were back out on top on a Chris Barr 40-yarder with only 7:24 on the clock, and the Nits were ahead at 15-13.
We had a very close game with Maryland down there. We won by 2 points, and Maryland had a chance to win it, but missed a field goal right at the end of the game.
Sochko from Pottstown, Pennsylvania, has all the pressure in the world. It'll be a 42-yard attempt. Man just holding, the clock running, 23 seconds. Clock continues to run, 20 seconds. The ball is down. It has enough distance, or does it? No, he missed it. It is wide. Penn State holds with 15 seconds left in the game.
For the second time in 2 years, Penn State was coming off an impressive win over Maryland to meet the Wolfpack of North Carolina State. Fullback Larry Suey and quarterback John Andrews put the Lions out front with an early 14-0 lead, but North Carolina State running back Ted Brown added scores in the second and third quarters to bring the Wolfpack to within 2 points. Jay Sherrill, who had already missed 2 conversions, kicked this 24-yarder on the third play of the fourth quarter, and the Pack was up by 1 point. The Lions started their final drive of the game on the 10-yard line and drove to the Wolfpack 29 and called on place kicker Chris Barr. For one of the few times during his All-American season, Barr failed to do the job, but would get a chance to redeem himself in 2 weeks against arch-rival Pitt.
We beat a fine Pitt team in 75, the team that was going to be a national champion in 76, down at Pitt. And that was Kavanaugh, and that was Dorsett, that was Walker, and that was a lot of good football players.
Elliott Walker of Pitt scored the first points of this defensive struggle when in the second quarter he broke this 37-yard TD run.
Elliott Walker. Touchdown.
But the biggest play of the game immediately followed.
They're still congratulating Elliott Walker on a sensational run to put this game.
Tommy Odell blocks it.
The Lions still trailed late in the fourth quarter when, with 6:42 remaining in the game, Steve Geis went 28 yards to tie the game at 6.
Steve Geis. Touchdown.
And once again, it came down to Chris Barr.
Penn State has the lead.
Penn State survived 3 more scares in the final 6.5 minutes when Pitt kicker Carson Long missed 3 field goal attempts.
Overall, the 75 season was really, from a coaching standpoint, was one that I probably remember as well as anyone I've been involved with. And I think our coaches got a great deal of satisfaction from that football team. '76 season was really one of the more challenging seasons I've ever been associated with. It was a football team that was very young and it lacked some leadership early. We did beat Stanford in the first football game, but even that was kind of a fluke.
Penn State scored on their first 3 possessions of the game, twice capitalizing on cardinal mistakes. Stanford fumbled on the kickoff that followed the Lions' first score, and Joe DeAndre recovered, setting up a Matt Barr field goal attempt. The kick was good, and another Barr was on his way to a spectacular career at Penn State. On Stanford's next possession, Kurt Ullerman grabbed a cardinal miscue, and Matt Suhey went 6 yards for the score, and the Lions had an early 15-0 lead.
Suhey.
But those were all the points they could muster. Stanford cut the lead to 15-12 when Mark Cardova and Tony Hill covered 48 yards on their touchdown play.
Stanford first and 10, Penn State 48. 5:31 left to play third quarter. Penn State leading by 9. This is for Tony Hill. Touchdown!
Penn State survived a fourth quarter scare, and Coach Paterno remembers.
Stanford had a terrible call on a penalty, one of the most bizarre calls I've ever seen made. The back judge called him for an illegal formation, that the flanker had lined up on the line of scrimmage so that the tight end was ineligible going downfield, so that play was called back. And that's the only reason we beat Stanford. In fact, we scored against Stanford with 12 guys on the field.
After a close call, the Lions dropped 3 games in a row, starting with a 12-7 decision to Woody Hayes and the Ohio State Buckeyes. Next up were the Iowa Hawkeyes.
And then we lost 3 games in a row. One of those games to Iowa was probably as bad a coaching decision as I've ever made in my life. We were losing 7-6, and we had a kid who missed a couple of field goals. And with about 40 seconds to go in the game, we substituted a young man who had never kicked in a game before. He wasn't ready to kick. I just grabbed him and said, "You kick. I'm tired of the other guy." And he missed it, and we lost the football game 7-6.
It should be noted that Herb Menhardt went on to have a tremendous career at Penn State.
In the middle of the season, we lost our 3rd straight football game in Kentucky, and we really got Kentucky clobbered us. I mean, they just outmanned us physically. They were tougher than we were that day, and they were a really good football team. They probably were, they and Notre Dame were the 2 best football teams in the country, probably in '77.
And outmanned they were, both offensively and defensively. Notable in that game, however, was that senior quarterback John Andrus was hurt on the 2nd offensive play.
When he got hurt, and that was the end of his career, he just physically couldn't play again. We had to go to Facina, and Chuck stepped in there, and we started a great career because in the next couple of years, he just had super years for us.
The following week, Chuck Facina immediately began to pay dividends by connecting on 2 touchdown passes. His accomplishments were overshadowed by freshman Mike Gooman's 4 touchdowns.
There goes Gooman. 3rd touchdown for Mike Gooman.
Yet another fine running back was beginning his career at Penn State, but the greatest was Heisman Trophy winner John Cappelletti.
What was the last one you hit Cappelletti? Was that the glove 3? Glove 2. Yeah, that was a good call. Tell Cappelletti he didn't run it right there.
Band off to John Cappelletti off the right side. He breaks 1 tackle. He's into the secondary. Shakes another tackle. 2 blockers in front of him. He's going all the way. A 34-yard touchdown run for John Cappelletti. And off to Cappy. He's up the middle. Breaks to his right. Fakes 1 man. Comes back against the green. Touchdown. And my friend puts Cappy over 200 yards on the afternoon.
John Cappelletti, All-American, 2nd in career rushes at Penn State with a total of 2,639 yards and this after only 2 seasons as a running back, and the only football player in the history of the university to receive the John W. Heisman Memorial Trophy. And perhaps the best glimpse into the personality of this exceptional young man came on the very night he received the Heisman.
I know my mother always cries at these affairs, so I'm going to try not to. A lot of people may have noticed that my legs are as straight as arrows, and that I have no trouble walking now or running now, but at one time in my life I couldn't walk without tripping. And my mother not only brought me through this, but she brought just about every member of our family through something like this. I'm very happy to do something like this. I thought about it since the Heisman was announced 10 days ago. And this is a dedicated trophy that a lot of people have earned. I've earned, my parents, the people I've mentioned, and numerous other people that are here tonight and been with me for a long time. The youngest member of my family, Joseph, is very ill. He has leukemia. And if I could dedicate this trophy to him tonight and give him a couple days of happiness, this is worth everything.
But after losing those 3, we came on very strong under Chuck Facina, who was just starting to come along as our quarterback. And we ended up winning, I think, 6 in a row.
And put it together they did as the Lions held the Orange Men of Syracuse to 3 points and shut out the Mountaineers.
Through the years, we've had some very interesting games with Temple, particularly when Wayne Harden was coaching the football team, because Wayne was a guy that could get a club peaked for one game and was a great game coach.
The Veterans Stadium crowd was treated to 51 first downs and 850 yards total offense. Chuck Fusina hit Tom Donovan to give the Lions a 31-17 lead with only 9.5 minutes in the game.
This is Donovan, touchdown!
But this 36-yard touchdown pass capped a 72-yard drive.
Blitz is on. Williams, touchdown!
The Owls then went 80 yards in 10 plays to pull to within 1 with no time on the clock.
The 76 game was particularly interesting because actually Temple had the football game, could have won it or at least tied it if they wanted to. The score was 31-30, clock had run out, and they went for 2, which is a great credit to Wayne. And he threw a pass out in the corner of the end zone, and to this day I don't know whether the kid caught it, didn't catch it. Wayne still says we interfered with him and what have you, but it was a great play, and it was a great football game, and it's one of those games that, you know, you go home to bed at night and say thank goodness, and you thank the good Lord for everything he does for you.
Penn State then won their 5th and 6th games in a row with easy wins over North Carolina State and Miami.
And we're playing very, very well. We came up against Pitt, and Pitt had a particularly good football team that year. They won the national championship that year. They had great quarterbacking in Kavanaugh. Dorsett was an outstanding tailback, obviously. He was a Heisman Trophy winner that year. And they had another fine back in Walker, and a lot of good football players. They were a good defense, and they were certainly a national championship football team that year.
Penn State was on the scoreboard against the #1 Panthers first when Bob Torrey went 21 yards on a screen pass for a late first quarter touchdown.
This is Torrey out. Gonna make it. Bob Torrey with a block from Mike Duman.
But Heisman Trophy winner Tony Dorsett went 6 yards in the second quarter to send the team to the locker rooms tied at 7.
It was a fine football game for half. We were ahead at the half, and up until the second half, we had played against Tony Dorsett 3.5 years. We had played 14 quarters against him, and he had never gotten 100 yards. But the second quarter, John Majors moved Dorsett up to fullback, and he hit a little quick trap and ran about 45 yards, and that broke open the ball game.
Dorsett.
The Lions would only reach pit territory once in the second half, and the Panthers never looked back, adding 10 more points in the fourth quarter on their way to a 24-7 victory.
We've had a lot of great football teams at Penn State, and sometimes people say to me, which was your greatest? And I'm reluctant to single out any particular team, but I tell you, that 77 team we had was close, if not the best we've had, particularly the way they were playing at the end of the year. We had a great quarterback in Facina. We played awfully good defense. We were young, enthusiastic, had a couple of great backs in Goulman and Suey, and overall, it was quite a year. They started out very well.
Penn State started their 1977 season, ending the longest winning streak in the nation by beating Rutgers 45-7. Sophomore running back Matt Suey showed what kind of a career he would have with his first quarter 51-yard run.
Suey.
He's going to go all the way, Ray. Nobody's going to catch him.
51 yards, and Matt Suey has his second touchdown.
Penn State went up 14-0 and coasted for the easy win. In front of a record Beaver Stadium crowd, the Cougars of Houston fell prey to the Lions when Chuck Fusina set up a Matt Barr field goal and this Ed Guthrie TD wrong.
Chuck Fusina was slowly coming into his own. 76, he ended up strong, and I think the Maryland game early in the 77 season really showed what a quarterback he was, and I think he threw for 280-something yards, completed 15, 16 passes.
In fact, Fusini completed 19 of 29 passes for 280 yards and 2 touchdowns, and had the third best passing day in Penn State history. The game was deadlocked at 3 when Fusina hit Jimmy that's me, for a 58-yard touchdown. Later in the game, Fusina hit Mike Guman for 20 yards, and Penn State went on to a 27-9 victory.
We played extremely well offensively that day, and I think most of the credit has to be given to Chuck, because Fusina really had a great day. Very good touch, picked apart the Maryland coverages, threw the right receiver and what have you. So I think that day, Fusina proved to everybody he was really a big league. So the only game we lost in 77 was to a very, very fine Kentucky team, which was on probation. We lost 24-20, and again in a very, very fine football game. I think Kentucky only lost one game that year and had a legitimate shot at a national championship if they had not been on probation.
The Lions were looking to revenge their manhandling by the Wildcats of a year ago, and in spite of a couple of first-half mistakes, the Lions managed a few big plays of their own.
I think the highlight of that game, played at Kippis in a football game, was a great punt return by Cefalo. I think Jimmy ran 75 yards in that game, and Kippis in a football game.
Cefalo is at the Penn State 26, and a hole. Could be it. It's all the way. That's the Jimmy Cefalo of the old.
The punt return, a Guman touchdown reception, and a couple of Matt Barr field goals gave the Lions a halftime lead.
We lost the game late when the Kentucky quarterback ran an option play for about 50 or 60 yards, which I think broke it open for them.
The Kentucky defense held the Lions to 2 first downs and 41 yards in the second half, and for the second year in a row, Kentucky beat Penn State.
We struggled with Utah in '77. Utah came in here very determined, a very well-coached football team, and with great morale. We moved the ball well enough. We were over 400 yards, but we were our own worst enemies. It was a rainy, muddy day. It was homecoming and the whole bit, and we just had one of those days that you feel fortunate that you win the game, because we really made enough mistakes to lose 2 games that day.
And it was defensive tackle Bruce Clark who set up the 10 fourth-quarter points that the Lions needed for the victory. On the first play of the fourth quarter, Clark stripped the ball away from running back Harry Gibson. And on the next defensive series, again, it was Clark.
Watch the pressure coming from the left side by Bruce Clark. Doesn't know his own strength yet. Really lays it on the quarterback. Causes this interception. Randy Sidler says, look at what I got. Happy young man.
There's some game when you don't play well enough to win, but you come out winning it anyway.
The Lions jumped out to a 31-10 third-quarter lead and had a few anxious moments as Orangeman quarterback Bill Hurley piloted Syracuse to 14 fourth-quarter points. But the Syracuse rally fell 7 points short, and the Lions posted a 31-24 win. Before the game was even 5 minutes old, Penn State had scored 21 points against the West Virginia Mountaineers, and later in the half added 21 more points in a 3-minute, 52-second span for a 42-7 halftime lead and an easy 49-28 victory. Penn State again collected 49 points, this time against Miami, and did not allow the Hurricanes to score until the final 2 minutes of the game for their 4th consecutive victory and 7th overall. Against North Carolina State, Chuck Fusina would break school records for completions, 22, and yards, 315, and as it turned out, needed every bit of it. With the Lions trailing 17-14, Fusina took his team 83 yards in the final 3 minutes.
Cefalo. First down at the 40-yard line. Schuler at the 50-yard line. It will be 3rd and a half a yard for a first down. He wanted to hit Fitzke, but Fusina and Fitzke were off on their timing. It is 4th down and inches. Well, first down, Suey. Oh, I beg your pardon, Ed Guthrie. At the 48-yard line of North Carolina State, Penn State has a first down, 1 minute and 51 seconds remaining. Cefalo at the first down. First down at the North Carolina State 37-yard line. And all Fusina wanted to do there, apparently, was just stop the clock.
Ray, this is going to go right down to the wire.
Fitzke left. Cefalo right.
Schuler's open. There's a draw play.
Suey all the way to the North Carolina State 21-yard line for a first down. Schuler
gets out of bounds.
The ball will be spotted at the 19-yard line.
Here come the linebackers. He's open.
He's at the 11-yard line.
Through the years, we've been able to come back late in football games and win games, and one of those would have been the '77 North Carolina State game. We were down by 3 points or whatever it was, but we had to score with a couple of minutes to go to win the football game, and Fusina took us down the field, and I remember he and Fitzke hit on a touchdown pass to win the football game, and it was a line of scrimmage play. It was one of those things that they improvised. Fitzke yelled out a post, or flag, whatever he decided to run, and Fusina said, go ahead, and that's the way they operated on the line of scrimmage, threw the ball for a touchdown. And it was a great effort, and obviously a thrilling win.
First down at the 11. Touchdown, 60. Trotsky is being overwhelmed.
Hey, this is absolutely fantastic job by Jusina. Fantastic boy.
The Lions posted an easy victory against Temple, and it was an especially good day for one PSU player, and Coach Paterno reminisces.
Jimmy Cefalo was always one of those guys that, you know, he sat around waiting for something to happen, waiting for the opportunity, and then when the opportunity came, he really turned it on. And I think Temple had 3 touchdowns and another punt return. Jimmy's, he's one of those guys that, you know, you got to be careful. You got to watch him, because the minute you give him an inch, he's going to take a yard.
Thanks, Coach. On a cold, snowy day at Pitt Stadium, the Lions were trailing the Panthers 7-6, but Mike Gooman gave Penn State a 12-7 halftime lead.
Cefalo.
Who's got
Gooman.
the ball?
Here comes
Outside.
Mike Gooman.
He's got to go in.
Touchdown.
Matt Barr added 3 more in the fourth quarter, and the Lions had a 15-7 lead, but the Panthers came right back.
2nd and 10 at the Penn State 18, 20 seconds left in the game.
And they had to go for 2 to tie us. And they ran an option play.
Didn't make it.
And the snow was on the field. It was tough to see the lines. It really was. And Pitt claims they scored, and we claim they didn't. But I don't think anybody to this day really knows, because you can't tell.
The 1978 Nittany Lions achieved a goal that none of their predecessors had been able to do before, a #1 national ranking during the regular season.
78 season had so many memorable games, starting right with the Temple game when we were losing late in the game, and Lance Mel had to recover the fumble, and it took us 10 plays and a clutch pass, 10 running plays and a clutch 3rd down pass for us to score and win that football game.
What a game it was. That final score came on a Matt Barr 23-yard field goal with 10 seconds left on the clock. Against Rutgers the following week, the Lions again relied on Matt Barr. He booted 4 field goals in the first 3 quarters. The final score was 26-10, the Nittany Lions. The 3rd victory of the season came at Ohio State. On Ohio State's first possession, Pete Harris picked off an Art Schleicher pass and returned it 33 yards.
3rd and 7.
That was only the first of 5 interceptions, and Penn State went on to a 19-0 victory.
We won that ball game very decisively, 19-0, and that was a you know, very important win for us, a very impressive win for us, because we usually shut out Ohio State football teams when Woody Hayes was playing out there. And then we had to beat SMU at home.
First half scoring against SMU was all Matt Barr. Barr's 4 field goals tied an NCAA record.
Again, Matt Barr is on target, and the score changes.
Late in the 3rd quarter, SMU was leading 21-12. Penn State mounted 2 drives of 69 and 73 yards for a come-from-behind win, 26-21. Texas Christian fumbled on the first play of the game, and Bruce Clark recovered.
I think Penn State has it.
Bruce Clark recovered the football.
On the next play, Booker Moore rambled 9 yards for the score.
Bassett and Fitzke wide left. Bassett in motion.
only 10 seconds had elapsed on the game clock, the Lions would go on to shut out TCU 58-0.
And then I think maybe the Kentucky game sticks out in my mind as much as anything, because Kentucky was the only game we had lost in '77. And our kids were really determined that they were going to go down to Kentucky and play a great football game. And I don't know whether I've ever seen our team more ready than they were, or more determined than they were that game.
That determination gave Penn State its third shutout in 4 games. Penn State scored on their first 2 possessions. Matt Suey's 1-yard touchdown rush culminated a 61-yard, 11-play drive. Then Chuck Fusina hit Scott Fitzke to cap the second scoring drive.
This is Fitzke. Touchdown. Fitzke got away from Larry Carter.
The Lion defense dominated the Wildcats, allowing only 27 yards rushing. Defense has always been a Penn State tradition. We asked Coach Paterno about that tradition.
We've been, at Penn State, we've been very fortunate. We've had some great defensive football teams through the years. The 68, 69 team with Reed and Smear and those guys, John Ebersol and Oncotts, Ham Cakes, those kids, it was a great team. The 78 team would be as good or would be in the same league. Guys like Millen and Clark were as good football players we ever had. Rich Malott at the end of the year was just playing super football. Petruccio was a solid down guy to go along with Clark and Millen, and it was an outstanding defensive football team, and I think the statistics would prove that out. I think we had 3 shutouts. In fact, I know we had 3 shutouts, and I don't think anybody got more than 21 points against us, and that was SMU. So as you can see in this day and age, when you can get 3 shutouts and hold people to less than 21 points every football game, you've got a great defensive team, particularly when you look at the schedule we played.
Penn State went to the air to defeat Syracuse 45-15 after the Orangemen shut down the Lion running game. Quarterback Chuck Fusina completed 15 of 27 passes for 293 yards and a school record 4 touchdowns. The Lions crossed the state line to visit West Virginia at Mountaineer Field, and they were almost sorry they did. The Mountaineers went 79 yards for the score in their first possession and turned an interception into another touchdown before the game was 4 minutes old.
But here again, the character of our football team and the complete balance of it. We blocked the punt. Gooman ran a punt back for 85 yards. And we ended up beating them 49-21. I think the special teams had more to do with that win than any game we played all year.
15. Got room. 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. West Virginia 40. West Virginia 30. We don't know who the penalty is against. It's going to be a touchdown unless it is called back.
It was a brilliant punt return.
It'll be an 85-yard punt return for a touchdown, dependent on who committed the infraction. West Virginia, illegal procedure.
Against Maryland, the Knicks depended once again on their defense. Defensive end Larry Kubin was responsible for 3 of the Lions' 10 sacks. Pete Harris and Carl McCoy combined for 5 interceptions, and the Terrapins finished with minus 32 yards rushing and only 3 points. Matt Barr's 3 field goals were the Lions' only points until Suey returned a punt 43 yards for a touchdown.
Isley to punt from the end zone. Suey at the 43-yard line. Oh, here he goes. Good ball. Touchdown.
Suey's score gave the Lions an insurmountable 9-point lead. The final, Penn State 19, North Carolina State 10.
Hit out of slick. They were leading us with about 5-6 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, and we had to make a drive to score, and we were 4th and 2, I think, as I recall, and we just decided we were going to go for it.
Trailing 10-7, Penn State drove 38 yards in 6 plays to a 4th and 2 situation on the pit 4.
Two wide receivers to the right. 4th and 2 at the Pitt 4. Here goes Goodwill.
They came back with the sweep. A play that they haven't stopped all day, and that's what championship teams are made of.
Linebacker Lance Mel intercepted another Rick Trucano pass, and the Lions ran out the clock for a 17-10 victory.
4th down. Over the middle, intercepted. Lance Mel. To the 22-yard line of Pitt. How fitting it is that the Penn State defense has been able to rise up when challenged.
Penn State ended the 1978 regular season undefeated with an 11-0 record.
Those 4 years, 75, 76, 7, and 8, were very interesting years, and the kind of pattern that has developed with Penn State football through the years was illustrated, I think, in those 4 years. In 75, we had a good, solid football team, great kicking, one of the greatest field goal kickers college football has ever seen. We had an outstanding defensive team. We literally parlayed defense and kicking into a Sugar Bowl bid. Got licked in a Sugar Bowl by a fine Alabama team, but we were never out of any football game. We played with a lot of enthusiasm, great morale, and then led into 76 where we had to rebuild, but we still had some momentum as far as character and what have you, and struggled through 76 until in the end, in the beginning of 76 we struggled. But after the first 4 football games, we started to put it together, and we're playing really good football, even though we lost the last 2 games against Pitt and Notre Dame. We lost to 2 outstanding football teams, and I think our kids gained confidence in knowing that they could play in that league, because Pitt won the championship in 76 and Notre Dame won the national championship in 77. In 77, we were an awfully good football team. I think the Pacina and Geis and Guman and Suey and those kids, Dorney, we were good. We were Torrey. We had a great offensive football team. But it took the 76 year, those young people getting to know each other, getting the confidence of playing against some good people, to put it together in 77. And outside of the fact that we lost in 77 to Kentucky, which was on probation, we probably had as good a team that year, and maybe a little bit better offensively than we had in 78, and maybe we had a bona fide right to think we were the #1 team in 77. But anyway, then we went right back in 78 and had a first time in our history we had been voted #1 at any time, and ended up playing that frustrating game in the Sugar Bowl game. And I think it would be a good thing for me to sum up those 4 years by making a statement about that 78 Sugar Bowl game. We lost it, but it was a great football game. It was one of the greatest defensive football games ever played in college football. Alabama was a superb team. People would want to look back and say, well, we made the wrong calls on the goal line, it didn't do that. Take credit away from the other guy, because I think the 78 game was as fine and as tough a football game that I have ever been involved in, except maybe 1 or 2 games that came after that.
Well, that's it for Great Moments in Penn State Football Volume 1. For Coach Joe Paterno, I'm Jimmy Cefalo. Thanks and goodbye.